Good evening. Welcome to St. Andrew. It's great to see you here tonight. And welcome to this great presentation featuring our festival choir, our handbell choir, and our orchestra. My name is Mark Feldmeyer, and I'm fortunate enough to be one of the pastors on this clergy team, along with other clergy and fine program staff. St. Andrew is a congregation that is committed to people from all walks of life, people from every point along the spiritual journey, people from all kinds of families and shapes and sizes of families. And so we want you to know that you are welcome here and to experience tonight the radical grace and hospitality that is so emblematic of St. Andrew and this congregation. If you do not have a church home, or if you are away from your church home on Christmas Eve, I invite you to join us for one of our 7 Christmas Eve services, each unique in its own way, yet faithful to sharing the message of Christ's birth in this world and in our lives. Tonight's concert will feature various musical selections from our choir and orchestra and handbell choir, interspersed with stories and reflections and poems offered by me. So settle in and quiet your hearts, silence your cell phones, and hear once again the mystery and beauty and wonder of the Incarnation. And now, Handel's For Unto Us a Child is Born by the Festival Choir and Orchestra.
To
There's a beautiful story told every Christmas in the forests of Provence in southern France. It's about the 4 shepherds who came to Bethlehem to see the child. According to the folk story, one of the shepherds brought eggs, another bread and cheese, the third brought wine, and the fourth brought nothing at all. People called him l'enchanté. The first 3 shepherds chatted with Mary and Joseph, commenting on how well Mary looked, how cozy was the cave, and how handsomely Joseph had appointed it. What a beautiful starlit night it was. They congratulated the proud parents, presented them with their gifts, and assured them that if they needed anything else, they had only to ask. Finally, someone asked, "Where is l'enchanté?" And they searched high and low, up and down, inside and out. And finally, someone peeked through the blanket hung against the draft into the creche. And there, kneeling at the crib, was the enchanted one. Like a flag or a flame taking the direction of the wind, he had taken the direction of love. And throughout the entire night, l'enchanté stayed in adoration, whispering to the Christ child, "Yesu, Yesu, Yesu. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus." We'll hear now from our choir and orchestra as they perform the tender carol, "What Child Is This?"
What child is this who lay to rest?
It was a long, long time ago and a long, long way away. But the memories of men are also long, and nobody has forgotten anything about my own sad part in it, unless maybe they have forgotten the truth about it. But you can never blame people for forgetting the truth because it is, after all, such a subtle and evasive commodity. I do not blame posterity for forgetting the subtleties and making me out to be the black villain of the piece, the heartless one who said, "No room, no room." I'll even grant you that a kind of villainy may be part of the truth. But if you want to speak the whole truth, then you will have to call me a villain with a catch in your voice, at least a tremor, a hesitation maybe, with even the glitter of almost a tear in your eye. Because nothing is entirely black, you know, not even the human heart. I speak to you as men of the world, not as idealists, but as realists. Do you know what it is like to run an inn, to run a business, a family, to run anything in this world for that matter, even your own life? It's like being lost in a forest of 1,000,000 trees, and each tree is a thing to be done. Is there fresh linen on the beds? Did the children put on their coats before they went out? Has the letter been written, the book read? Is there enough money left in the bank? Today, we have food in our bellies and clothes on our backs. But what can we do to make sure that we'll have them still tomorrow? 1,000,000 trees, 1,000,000 things. Until finally we have eyes for nothing else. And whatever we see turns into a thing. The sparrow lying in the dust at your feet, just a thing to be kicked out of the way, not the mystery of death. The calling of children outside your window, just a distraction, an irrelevance, not life, not the wildest miracle of them all. That whispering in the air that comes sudden and soft from nowhere, only the wind. Of course, I remember very well the evening they arrived. I was working on my accounts and looked up just in time to see the woman coming through the door, and she walked in that slow, heavy-footed way that women have in the last months, as though they're walking in a dream or at the bottom of the sea. Her husband stood a little behind her, a tongue-tied, helpless kind of man, I thought. I cannot remember either of them saying anything, although I suppose some words must have been passed. But at least it was mostly silence, the clumsy silence of the poor. You know what I mean. It was clear enough what they wanted. It happened much in the way that you have heard. I did not lie about there being no room left. There really was none. Though perhaps if there had been a room, I might have lied, as much for their sakes as for the sake of the inn. Their kind would have felt more at home in a stable, that's all. And I do not mean that unkindly either, God knows. Later that night when the baby came, I was not there. I was lost in the forest somewhere, the unenchanted forest of 1,000,000 trees. 15 steps to the cellar and watch out for your head going down. Firewood to the left. If the fire goes out, the heart freezes. Only the wind. So when the baby came, I was not around, and I saw none of it. As for what I heard, just at that moment itself of birth, when nobody turns into somebody, I do not rightly know what I heard. But this I do know. All your life long, you wait for your own true love to come. We all do. Our destiny, our joy, our heart's desire. So how am I to say it, dear friends? When he came, I missed him. So pray for me. Pray for the innkeeper. Pray for me and for us all, my own true love. And now, cradle him by the festival choir and orchestra. The quality of a music program is measured not only by the number of people who gather to hear it, but also by the number of people who gather to make it. And tonight we have well over 200 people who come here tonight to make music. A music program is measured not only by the music that it makes, but by the lives that it touches in our community, by the craft that is celebrated when we gather to make music, and by its contribution to the common good. It's measured by things that can't be measured, like beauty, like mystery and spirit and grace. Performances such as this are our gift to this community, and so there is no price of admission. But your free will offering tonight will make future performances possible. And so I invite you to give with generosity and with enthusiasm. And if not with enthusiasm, then with a double portion of generosity. As the ushers receive the offering, our handbell choir will perform "I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day," arranged by Dubinsky. It happened during the Christmas Eve pageant at New York's famous Riverside Church several years ago. The pageant had come to the point at which the innkeeper is supposed to say to Mary and Joseph with that resounding line, "There's no room in the inn." And the part of the innkeeper, with his only spoken line, was played by Tim, a young man in the congregation who had Down syndrome. And Tim had practiced his line over and over with his parents until he had it. And when the big moment arrived, he was standing in front of the church as Mary and Joseph slowly made their way down the center aisle. They approached, knocked on the door, and said their lines, and the whole audience leaned forward, willing him to remember his line. "There's no room in the inn," Tim boomed out perfectly. But then as Mary and Joseph turned on cue to travel on, Tim suddenly yelled, "Wait!" Mary and Joseph turned back and looked at him in surprise. And he said, "You can stay at my house." And now, Amy Grant's "Breath of Heaven" by the Festival Choir and Orchestra. Harper's Magazine published a brief memoir in its December 2014 issue. The memoir was entitled Christmas in Prison. The author, Kenneth Hartman, is 31 years into a life sentence without the possibility of parole. At the age of 19, after a night of drinking, he killed a man in a fist fight outside of a bar. Hartman reflects on how, over the course of his 31 years in prison, authorities have placed more and more restrictions on the celebration of Christmas for the inmates. He longs for the exchange of gifts, the singing of carols, worship. In prison, he says, the cancellation of Christmas is a part of the cancellation of our membership in the family of man. And yet we are human, whatever the propaganda may say. Our hearts still beat, and the Spirit lives on in every breath we take. He says, I'm often asked what I want for Christmas. People tend to send books and music. I get cards. I send cards. I hang up some decorations. But what I really want, I can't have. I want to stay up late on Christmas Eve, arranging my daughter's presents just as my father did for me. I want to share a meal with the people I've been estranged from for more than 3 decades. I want to breathe the air of a free man. I want most of all for the atrocious mistakes of my past to vanish so that I can wake up next to my wife, thanking God that all of this was but a horrible nightmare of Christmases that never happened, that the life I lead is a good and worthy life after all. And now we'll hear Rainey's What a Wonderful Child by the Festival Choir and Orchestra. As we close our time tonight together, I'll leave you with a brief poem by the late Howard Thurman, African-American scholar and poet and pastor, called The Work of Christmas. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flocks, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among the people, and to make music in the heart. Our choir and bells will bring this evening to a close with a benediction song titled Peace, Peace.